Welcome to Illo Talk, Student Edition. I am Cory Kerr, and today we're going to talk about pricing and how to talk about money and how to figure all that stuff out. And we have lots of people with us today, so we're growing, so welcome everyone. All right, so we wanted to start kind of with your question.
Yeah, so I want to know specifically the difference between hourly pricing and then a set price, and which one is more beneficial when you're starting out.
Okay, so when you say a set price, you're talking about like one price for the project and it doesn't change, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Just by raise of hands, and I'm going to call that project pricing is usually what that's called, or a fixed bid. That's an I. A fixed bid. So, how many of you guys do hourly when you do stuff, and and I'm not talking like working at McDonald's, like when you're doing creative work. How many of you guys do hourly? Okay.
I do like a blend.
A blend of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hourly up to a certain amount of hours.
And then how many of you guys do like a fixed bid? Okay, and does anybody do anything other than those two? Because there's also like value-based, there's like retainer, is anybody doing anything else? Okay, so when we're looking at this, hourly versus a fixed bid, I have a preference, but I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. What are kind of the upsides and downsides to each? What's the upside to a project-based pricing?
If you underestimate like how long it's going to take you, you might be out a little bit of money.
Okay, so let's say that you assume, I can do that. I figure that'll probably take me like 10 hours, okay? And just for the sake of numbers, this would be really low, but you charge like $100, right? Just because that's easy math. So then it takes you, how much are you getting paid per hour in that situation? $10, right? So that's easy math. So we're doing $10 an hour, okay? And so, but what if it takes you 15 hours? All of a sudden, you're making less per hour, right? Your hourly rate just went down. But what's the upside of that?
Sometimes you can get paid like upfront or a portion of it upfront.
Okay, yeah, so money down, okay. And how about over here though, in this hourly situation? One option is that you're slower than you thought, you make less money per hour. What's the other option?
Faster.
Yeah, so if you spend 5 hours doing this, okay, all of a sudden that $100 is spread over 5 hours and you just doubled your hourly rate, right? And so that can be one of those benefits. It can also be a huge risk. You're taking the risk when you do a project or a fixed-based situation, is you take on that risk. Because the client doesn't have any risk because they know they're going to get the project for a price. That's it. Okay, now how about hourly on the other side? What's the downside to hourly?
Sometimes it's hard to pitch it to a client because they don't know how much it's going to cost in the end.
Yeah, so on the client side, this is a huge risk because you tell them, what are you guys charging per hour right now?
$20 an hour.
Okay, so you're saying, all right, $20 an hour, okay? And do you estimate when you do this about how long it'll take?
Best you can, but like that's the thing with hourly is you don't probably know the whole scope of the project as it comes. Like you're gonna keep billing until it's done.
Okay, so it's 20, and then the hourly rate or the amount, right? It could be anything. It could just keep going indefinitely, which is a huge risk for the client, right? Now, here's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. What if you do this situation? If you say, it'll probably take me 10, you tell the client, it'll probably take me 10, right? And then it takes you 15. What happens to that client relationship at that point?
They get frustrated. They say, you said you'd have it in 10 hours and now I got to pay, $100 extra for this project.
So it just cost them more money than they had anticipated for. So that's where the risk is on their part. What if you get it done in 5?
You're kind of shortchanged.
Right.
They pay you less.
So you get punished for being efficient, right? And so at this point, I've been doing a lot of this stuff for as long as most of you guys have been alive, right? I'm faster than you are. And so I don't like hourly because I shouldn't be punished for my efficiency and my effectiveness. I also don't like hourly because between me and the client, it's that initially becomes a disincentive, right? Because it incentivizes me to be less effective, and it worries them that I'm price gouging, right? But are they paying you, in most situations for visual creative work, are they paying you for the amount of time you spend? So what is it that they're actually wanting?
They want the product.
Okay, and what is the product?
The design, the creative piece.
Okay.
They're technically paying for your skills, for the knowledge that you have.
Yeah. So part of it is skills, right? Is you are doing something that they need, right? So they're not. There's nobody that's going to come to you. Well, not nobody, but there's nobody that's in business for money, right? That's going to come to you and say, "I'd like to hire you to do this thing I don't need, and I'm just going to pay you because I don't need it. So you can kind of make whatever you want, right?" That's not a situation that's going to happen. And so the skills, but there's actually a little bit more than that. What do those skills do for them? Why are they paying you to do that?
Most of the time it's something they can't do on their own.
Okay. So there's a lack in the business, and you're filling that business. And what that is its value. You're adding value to their business, right? They should be, good business people, should be hiring you guys to increase the amount of money that they're making or decrease the amount of money that they're spending, right? There's going to be a value increase, whether that is going to be like in the marketplace, in the perception, their product. You go to the store and you look at two different things, and they're basically the same product, and one thing is $1 and the other thing is $10. What's going to be the main difference between those things?
The
Price.
quality.
Yeah.
Okay, it could be quality. Okay, it's probably perceived value, which is usually the visuals, right? It's the packaging, it's the whatever else. And so with that, you're adding value. Okay, and if anybody starts talking to you about time, then you can just ask them if they actually care about how much time it takes. Because if they're trying to ask you about time, they're either like, I don't understand what it is that you're doing, why this costs this amount, and then you can take them through your process. But if they're like, could you itemize like how much time you're spending on this, then you would say, are you hiring me as an employee? Like, is there going to be like, am I going to get medical insurance and benefits and a retirement plan? Like, because really, if you get what I'm offering, like if you get what you need out of this situation and you get it on time, does it really matter whether it takes me 5 hours or whether it takes 15 hours? And the people who care about that, the ones that are like, yeah, well, I don't want you to like take advantage of me. I don't want you to like, whatever. The way they're thinking about that is kind of a red flag. And so those are the type of clients that are probably going to like take advantage or try to squeeze you and get work for you for free. They're trying to talk you down. So when it comes to hourly versus kind of a fixed bid, I prefer a fixed bid. And I don't even mention how many hours in my bid at all because it's irrelevant. But then, what do I need to do in this situation? What do I need to do to make sure that this doesn't run away? Because there's something called project creep. Have you guys heard the term project creep? Mm-hmm. What's project creep?
It just slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So like, if I'm trying to think of an example. Like, let's say I'm making a logo for somebody, and I'm like, okay, I'll give you 3 drafts and 2 revisions or whatever. And then slowly over time, like I'm not really paying attention. I don't really have it in my contract drawn out exactly everything. It just slowly keeps on getting changed. The project gets drawn out forever.
Right. And so the way that this works is usually not intentional. It's usually the client isn't trying to take advantage of you. Usually the client is saying, oh, hey, would you mind also doing this? And as soon as they do that, so there's a thing called scope, okay? And the scope is just like, here are the boundaries that we're gonna play in, right? This is the area that we're gonna work in. And so there's gonna be milestones, we're gonna go this direction, okay? And as soon as the client's like, I'd like something over here or over here, that is what's called outside of the scope. So you say, well, that's outside of the scope of our agreement. I'd love to do that for you. Let me let you know how much it would cost. And then you can make a decision on whether you want me to do that or not. And if they're like, oh, well, why are you charging me extra? It's like, well, we had a written agreement, we signed it, this is how that works, right? And most people will understand, right? If you've got a leak in your house and the plumber shows up and they get 80% of the way through fixing that leak, and then in the middle of them like fixing that, you're like, oh, hey, by the way, I actually met this leak over here. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, and abandon the one they're working on, and then jump over to the other one and start a fresh new job. They're going to be like, okay, that's fine. Let me tell you how much that will cost, right? And it's the same thing with you guys. They can't just because they've engaged you, they don't own you, right? You are engaged within the scope of this project. So has anybody had that happen where you get scope creep, where you get people that are just like the project just grows, the goalposts kind of move? You have?
Yeah, so I was doing a project for a friend, which I found with students, a lot of our clients end up being family members and friends. So it can be tricky to know where to draw the line because they want to pay and they want to help. With this particular project, the friend kept asking for adjustments and changes and new drafts, and it was difficult to know where to draw the line to keep the friendship, but also to make sure I was getting paid what I was worth and that the project wasn't becoming more than I initially intended.
So how did those conversations go?
So I typically said, that's a really great suggestion that's going to take significantly more time than you likely realize, and I would probably have to ask more for this project if I were to make those adjustments. Would that be worth it to you still? And as I said things like that, he was like, actually no, it's okay. So
Okay.
it was helpful.
Yeah,
But it was hard. That was hard to say.
And did you say it like that? Did you say probably, maybe, meek?
I was
cowering?
definitely a little meek, and I'm a spunky little lady, but I was definitely a little meek.
Okay.
It gets a little nerve-wracking, especially when it's someone that you're friends with.
Right. Why are you nervous?
Ooh, I don't want them to feel offended or like I'm trying to swindle them.
Okay.
Right? And if I worry that if they would have wanted something expensive, that they would have found someone other than me to do it.
Interesting.
Right? So they're asking me not because of a combination of my skills and because of the relationship we already have.
Okay, I want to talk about those things. I've taken some notes. Okay, what could they be offended at? So you said you don't want them to be offended.
Yeah.
What in saying, this isn't what we agreed to. Let me tell you how much it'll cost. What is your worry about what they would be offended about?
Maybe offended is the wrong word. I worry that they would value our friendship less.
Okay.
And if that's the kind of friend they are, then it's probably not the kind of friend you want.
All right, so I'm gonna cross offended off. But this one is interesting, right? Swindle. We're worried that we will be perceived as if we're like trying to milk every client for all they're worth, right? And that's kind of a weird relationship, is when we're like, well, I don't want to be perceived as like a used car salesman who's just trying to get as much money as possible. But the other one that you mentioned, I think, is the biggest problem. Is you said they came to me, not somebody that was more expensive. What did you mean by that?
I think because I just do freelance things typically for friends and family. They see the work that I do that either ends up on my social media or that someone tags me in that I've done for them. And I wonder if they wanted something that was more expensive or professionally done by someone who is the stereotypical picture of a freelancer, that they would have done research online or found someone through that. That they're asking me because I'm a friend and they're hoping that I'll give them a deal is normally what I perceive.
Okay.
So maybe not necessarily not worth it, but that they're not willing to pay more. And so then it becomes the debate of how much do I really want to do this? Do I want the experience, or do I want to make sure I'm valuing the work that I do? Which is the debate. And so it gets a little tricky.
Okay. So we're hitting a lot of stuff. You use the word just. I'm just a freelancer. Why are you using qualifying words like probably, maybe, and just?
I'm getting roasted here.
Everybody else is going to do the same thing. You're just the one that's talking right now.
I think I tend to minimize my work because it's a field that oftentimes is sometimes overlooked, right? You've got this sweet little entrepreneur, the business owner that's like, I can make this on Microsoft Word.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's terrible. So I think it's something people feel they can do themselves. And so if I want to do it for them, I worry about being overbearing.
Okay, so...
And obviously a lot of this is irrational, but it's those
Right.
subconscious things.
No, it's irrational, but that doesn't mean that we don't all experience it and that I don't do the same thing. Like in my mind, as I'm going through this stuff, I have to remind myself not to downplay what it is that I'm doing. So what would happen if they did do their own design in Microsoft Word?
I mean, maybe they're really good in Microsoft Word, but chances are it's going to be a little cringy.
Okay, it's going to be bad, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be
And
too
what's that going to do to their business in the marketplace?
great.
Okay, the perception of that. Like, does anybody ever get really nervous eating at a place where the menu just is not designed well?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you assume that the food quality is probably somehow related to the time they took to like put into the other aspects of the business.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a very common thing that all consumers do, is we assume that if they don't know how to do their packaging well, or they don't care enough about the way that they're perceived in the marketplace, I wonder what else they don't care about. Like, my initial thought is like, oh look, Comic Sans, I wonder how much rat feces I'm going to eat at this meal. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be like there's got to be a direct relationship to the decision making that led to this design and the decision making that leads to the cleanliness of your kitchen or who you're hiring as your cooks or whatever. Like, it permeates that. So,
But if it's papyrus, then you know it's good food, right?
right. If it's papyrus, then it's probably like some hookah joint or like a Hawaiian like trailer or something. But anyway, but with that, people instinctively undervalue or devalue a business that doesn't present itself well. So my point is, yes, I can make a sandwich, but I am not a professional cook. Your clients, they could do what you're doing, but if they did it, it would devalue their offering in the marketplace. So what is it in that situation that you're actually bringing to the table?
It's skills.
Right. It's not just the skills, because we keep going back to the skills. It's not the skills, it's not the software. You are increasing the perceived value in the market, which is either going to make them so that they can charge more money or have more clients, or both. And so what you're bringing to the table is really important. And so that's why I kept nitpicking on things like just and probably and maybe, is because they're not doing you any favors. Like, they're getting valuable work, and I know people that will not go to a place based on what that place looks like.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So how do you make sure the client understands that? Do you tell them up front? If like you see the red flag, what do you do?
Understand which part of it?
Understand, like, if they're not getting that you are adding value because of like your knowledge and you're increasing their, the perceived value, how do you get them to that state? Because like this is kind of revelatory for me, but
Right.
how do you get that for them, the client?
So part of
Without
that,
seeming like prideful,
Right.
right? You don't want to come across as like
Right.
you don't even know what I'm going to do for you. Like,
oh,
you
how
better
horrible would
watch
it be
out.
to have confidence in what you're doing?
Confidence, pride, confidence, like that
Okay, there's-
cringy, like boastful, right?
There's humility, right? And then there's hubris.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay? And so you want to stay away from like promising things that are stupid, right? That are just like not gonna, like no design is gonna make like everyone in town, like every single member of the town come and like this product or whatever. There's, you're gonna hit a target audience and stuff. And so promising stuff like that isn't helpful. But there's kind of two things. One is, to a certain extent, you're not gonna change people's minds, right? So it's a really good question. But the other one is, in the way that you speak about it, and if you can speak intelligently, okay, and in a way that they can understand, but also shows that you know what you're doing, that increases the value of what's going on. This is why I always have everybody do write-ups, is because a lot of people that are going to hire us, they don't understand what we do. They don't know what the process is. They just think like, hey, that's a simple looking logo. That must have been easy. So you guys made that and it was great, right? And it was like, well, let me take you through the process of like, the 123 sketches that I did to get to this idea, and then I got this idea and I fleshed it out. There's some meaning here and this type of thing, and there's a number of revisions. And then people, when they see that process, that's before they even engage with you. They found your portfolio on Behance or Dribbble or your own website or whatever, and they read a couple of your write-ups and they say, oh, okay, well, this is somebody that is like thinking things through, right? And so they're actually hiring you in that case for what you can do, the skills, what everybody focuses on. But more than that, they're thinking of like the thinking and value and creativity that you add to those skills. Because there's a lot of people out there that know how to use Adobe Illustrator that suck at design. Right? There's a lot of people out there that know how to use Adobe After Effects, and they, just because they can make something move doesn't mean they have like thought through the process of like how they're going to communicate something to that audience or whatever. Or people that can edit but can't tell a story, right? And so it's not just the skills, it's the thinking kind of behind that. The other thing is, when we're talking to them and getting to this, and this is one of the things, and maybe Emily will ask her question as well to kind of piggyback onto this, but is the way that you engage the client in the beginning, that first conversation that you have with them, it sets the tone for that relationship. And so if these red flags are shooting up, they should be shooting up in that first conversation before you choose to get into a contractual relationship. Okay, on the back end, if it's happening that you feel undervalued, probably you didn't charge enough, or they're not treating you like a partner in this enterprise. They're treating you like a voice-activated mouse, right? I'm gonna just tell this mouse what to do and what to click, and then I'll be done. And it's like, just learn it yourself and do it in that situation. But if that's the case, you have already blown the relationship early on. And so I used to work with somebody who said, if you ever have to look at the contract, the relationship is probably already dead, right? The contract is going to help you set things in stone and get things laid out. It protects the client, it protects you, and it also is a guide of how this relationship is going to go. And if at any point in time we go off the rails, which happens all the time and doesn't even have to have ill intent, right? You just remind them, remember we've got this number of revisions, and so we need to, you just need to remember we've got this number of revisions, so this is one of your revisions, right? Or you've already done 2 revisions. Just know that, think really hard about this last one, because this is the last one. You can make as many revisions as you want, but after this point, it'll cost you more money than we originally agreed to, and I want to make sure that you get what you want and that we stay under budget. And so it's fine if you want to spend more money, but know that we're heading that direction if you keep changing your mind or keep doing this revision process.
And I like that you say we, that you're a team with the client.
Right.
That it's not like I'm going to have to charge you more and I need this. It's this is the direction we're headed.
Yes.
That just little things like that I think help to bring a lot of coordination and cooperation into the project.
Subscribe, ring that bell, all the stupid YouTube things, and we'll be doing more of these episodes. But leave your questions in the comments so that we know kind of what you want to cover, and I'll bring some other people in. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time.